Forget worm castings. Native soil builds fertility better than anything you can buy. For years, I did what most serious gardeners do. I hunted down worm castings like they were black gold. I mixed them into beds, brewed them into teas, and treated them like the final word in soil fertility. And don't get me wrong, worm castings work. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one talks about. Worm castings never transformed my soil the way native soil did. Not faster growth, not stronger plants, not long-term fertility. What finally changed my garden wasn't importing biology, it was activating what was already under my feet, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. This is the untold story of how native soil quietly became the backbone of my garden's fertility, and why it might be the missing piece in yours. The worm casting trap most gardeners fall into. Worm castings have great marketing, they're clean, baggable, measurable, and easy to sell. They promise instant life, instant microbes, instant results. That's appealing, especially to beginners trying to do things right. But here's the catch. Worm castings are finished biology. They're already digested, already stabilized, already at their peak. That means they're fantastic as a supplement, but terrible as a foundation. I noticed something strange over time. Beds that relied heavily on castings needed constant reapplication. Growth was good, but short-lived. The soil underneath never really changed. It stayed dependent. That's when I started asking a dangerous question. Where all the stars ein, oder ein? Why am I importing fertility when nature builds it for free? What native soil has that worm castings never will? Native soil isn't sterile dirt. It's actually a living archive. Inside it are microbial communities that evolved specifically for your climate, rainfall patterns, plant species, pests, and seasons. These microbes already know how to survive drought, heavy rain, heat waves, and poor inputs, because they've been doing it for centuries. Worm castings bring diversity. Native soil brings adaptation. When I stopped stripping my beds down and started working with the soil I had, everything changed. Root systems grew deeper, plants handled stress better, diseases became rare instead of routine. The soil wasn't just feeding plants anymore, it was regulating the entire garden ecosystem. You know, one of the biggest lies in gardening is the idea of dead soil. Most soil isn't dead, it's just asleep. Years of tilling, chemicals, synthetic fertilizers, and bare ground, well, they shut down those microbial networks. But they don't disappear, they just go dormant, like seeds waiting for rain. The moment I stopped fighting my native soil and started feeding it carbon, cover, and biology, it woke up fast. Honestly, faster than any imported amendment ever delivered. And here's the key insight experienced gardeners will appreciate. Soil doesn't need more nutrients. It needs better conversations between microbes and roots. Native soil already speaks the language. Every handful of native soil contains microbial memory, fungi that know how to decompose local leaf litter, bacteria that recognize native mineral profiles, protozoa that regulate populations naturally. When you import castings, compost, or commercial inoculants, you introduce outsiders. Some survive, many don't, most never fully integrate. But when you activate native soil, you're not introducing strangers. You're reuniting an ecosystem. This is why my fertility started compounding instead of resetting every season. Each year built on the last. No dependency, no crashes. That's real soil power. I didn't do anything complicated. In fact, I did less. I stopped tilling. I stopped leaving soil bare. I stopped chasing NPK numbers. Instead, I focused on feeding soil organisms, not plants. Leaf litter became an asset, not a mess. Mulch stayed on the surface where fungi thrive. Roots stayed in the ground year-round, even when beds weren't really in use. Occasionally, I'd borrow a shovel of soil from a healthy wild area nearby, like a forest edge, old grassland, or some undisturbed ground, and lightly dust it into beds like a microbial starter culture. That was it. No worm bins, no constant purchases, just patience and consistency. And honestly, the payoff wasn't subtle. So, why does native soil build fertility that lasts decades? Well, here's what finally convinced me. Fertility stuck around even when I stopped adding inputs. That never happened with worm castings. Native soil builds structure, real aggregation, stable pore spaces, fungal highways that actually persist. Nutrients don't leach as easily, water infiltration improves, and roots, they explore deeper layers instead of just staying shallow and dependent. This is slow fertility, but once it's built, it's incredibly hard to lose, and that's the kind of soil legacy most gardeners say they want, but never give their soil the chance to create. When worm castings still make sense, let's be clear, I'm not anti-worm castings. They're great for seedlings, stressed plants, containers, and jump-starting dead substrates. They're excellent medicine. But medicine is not food. If your entire fertility plan depends on buying inputs every season, your soil isn't alive yet. It's on life support. Native soil is the long game. It's resilience. It's independence. There's no product to sell when the solution is already under your feet. Native soil doesn't come in a bag. It doesn't scale. It doesn't fit into neat fertilizer schedules. And honestly, it doesn't create repeat customers. But what it does create are gardeners who stop needing permission, instructions, and constant inputs. And, well, that's powerful. The takeaway every Soilpower gardener needs to hear is this. If you remember just one thing, make it this. Your soil doesn't need saving. It needs awakening. Before you buy another amendment, ask yourself how you're supporting the life that's already there. Because once native soil wakes up, it really outperforms anything you can import. That's been my experience, and honestly, it's why my garden's fertility is still increasing year after year, without chasing trends or products. If this changed how you see your soil, do me a favor, subscribe to Soilpower, share this with a fellow gardener, and help get this untold story back where it belongs, into the ground.